And if this is your first time giving your mind a little love, I have a few goodies for you. First, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And second, sign up for the Morning Mind Love. Think of it like a weekday oracle from your highest self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, you'll get 2 gifts absolutely free: a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up. Welcome to Mind Love, episode 274. Today's episode is all about how to break the cycle of codependency, stop trying to control others, and start caring for yourself.
When is it my job? When is it my business? How much is my business? But we're way too eager to help when we're into our codependency, because whatever we do for another means we don't have to think about working on ourselves. When I talk about being of service, I'm not talking about in a codependent way. I'm talking about measuring the value of what we're doing. Is there value in what I'm doing? Is the work I'm doing bringing to the world something of value, or is it adding to the shit pot? And I think that's an important consideration right now in our world, is measuring what we're doing and where we want to put our energy. Does it have value? Is it of service, or are we just making noise?
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
If this is your first time giving your mind a little love, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Mind love is a habit, and the more you give your mind that love and intention, the better you'll feel about yourself and your life. Plus, it's really a win-win because more subscribers means Mind Love attracts even more amazing guests to bring you their wisdom. So don't forget to subscribe. Do you feel like you're always the one giving and never receiving? Or maybe you feel like you're always the one doing and never being. A long time ago, I stumbled upon the word codependency when I was in my worst relationship. I had never heard it before, and the idea that I was the dependent one seemed crazy. I was the caretaker. I was the one reeling him in. I was the one making sure that he didn't totally screw up his life with drugs or gambling or alcohol or even criminal activity. Not that it worked. I thought I was helping. So when I saw it from a perspective that I might actually be controlling, I was kind of shocked. The thing is, we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves. And when we try to control others, we're really just trying to control the situation. We want things to be a certain way, and we think that if we can just control the other person, then everything will be okay. But it doesn't work like that. All we can ever do is control ourselves. And when we try to control others, we're really just causing more problems. If any of this sounds familiar, you might be in a codependent relationship. Yeah, I was shocked too. But here are some of the signs. You feel like you have to take care of the other person. You feel like you have to be the one to fix the other person. You feel like you have to control the other person. You feel like your own needs are never being met. You feel like you're always the one giving and never receiving. You feel like you're not really sure who you are anymore. You feel like your life is all about the other person. I'm having flashbacks just going through this list. It's miserable because it affects everything. I lost friends. I distanced from family. I lost my goals and my hobbies, my money. I lost my zest for life. And it's not a happy place to be. And the crazy part was, the more I tightened my grip, the less control that I felt I had anyways. So how do we break the cycle of codependency? How do we stop trying so hard to control others so we can finally just take a step back and take care of ourselves? Well, that's what we're talking about today. And I'm really excited about today because she wrote the book that helped me get my life back over 15 years ago. Her name is Melanie Beattie, and she's the author of Codependent No More, as well as The Language of Letting Go, The Grief Club, and Beyond Codependency. Newsweek also named Codependent No More one of the 4 essential self-help books of all time. So 3 key things we will learn are the psychological reasons why we try to control, why detachment is necessary for a healthy life and how to practice it, and how to break free from the cycle of codependency so you can start caring for yourself. I used to be one of those people who had grand plans for a big healthy meal every Sunday night, and I'd make these elaborate meal plans, buy all the ingredients, and then Wednesday would roll around and I'd be staring at that wilted spinach, ordering takeout again. Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, and that's why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's so perfect for those nights when you have no energy left. What I love most is their smart cart technology. It actually learns what I like and what I will actually cook. So no more buying ingredients for recipes that I'll never make. Everything that shows up, I actually use. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners, only high quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry brands like Vital Farms and Ithaca Hummus that I already trust. The time I've gotten back has been incredible. Instead of spending Sunday meal planning, I'm doing things that actually matter to me. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE. And now let's welcome Melanie Beattie to the show.
I'm very happy to be here.
So I was just telling you how excited I am to have you on the show because your book was one of the first handful of self-help books. Before I really realized that I was going to be on this whole self-development journey, I got your book because I needed it. My whole life was spiraling. I thought I had ruined my life. And found your book, Codependent No More. I don't even know why I found it or how. I didn't know what codependency meant at the time. And it was so helpful. I actually, it might have been a recommendation from Al-Anon when I was going to meetings there. So give us a little background on you and why you wrote the book about codependency and devoted most of your life to it.
Well, because when I found myself in the situation you found yourself in, there was nothing to read. Any work that was out there was directed at the alcoholic. It was all about how to make the alcoholic better. That's all I had thought about. And I need to make an aside that you don't have to be with an alcoholic to be codependent, but they are good triggers for our codependency. They're excellent triggers for our codependency. I wrote it because I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. I had married the man of my dreams. I had 2 kids, and I woke up every day wishing I could just end my life. I was so blasted, unhappy, and miserable, and I didn't know why. And when I talked to my friends about it, they said, well, if you want your marriage to work, just don't get a divorce. That was back in the early 70s. And I just kept going, no, there's got to be something. There's got to be a reason, because I had been through my own treatment for chemical dependency. And I was a relatively happy person when I met my kid's dad. And it was a beautiful day when I met him. And then everything went to shit. Very slowly, but certainly, as happens or as can happen when you marry an addict or another troubled person. And I just kept bouncing off him. And then when I found out what the problem was, it was particularly egregious because we were both working in a treatment center. I had no idea he was a practicing alcoholic when I married him. In fact, I thought he was a successful counselor for people in recovery. So it was all quite mind-boggling, to take in, to adjust to, and then to sort out, what do I want to do next? This is my problem. Doesn't matter how I got here. How do I want to get out? But there were no roadmaps. I didn't even know what I was doing wrong. I didn't know what it meant to caretake another person. I didn't know what it meant to be controlling. We didn't have the language we do now. for taking care of ourselves, and for finding our way out of the messes, the many messes we humans can get ourselves in. And so I made a decision that I wanted to bring that language to people. But first, I had to get the information up here and in here about what it was. So that's how Codependent No More came to be. 5 very short, long, painful years after making that decision, I wrote the book and it was published.
I found myself in a codependent relationship, had no idea what codependency was. And similar to you, I didn't realize that I was dating an addict. It came out one revelation at a time. I realized he was drinking a lot, but honestly, I was like 22 at the time. I was easily drinking a lot. You know, if somebody was going to hand me a drink, I didn't have that like, should I drink too much? I had just left college, you know, we were all binge drinking at night. Like there was no like...
Well, you were a baby.
Yeah,
you were a very young child.
And he was older than I was. And so, yeah, we'd go out drinking all the time. He seemed to have all of this money and was just sort of showering me with gifts. And I thought it was too good to be true, which it was. It came out over the next year that he was not just an alcoholic. He was addicted to meth. He was addicted to ladies of the night. And he was also addicted to gambling. And
I ended up, if he knew my husband.
They're probably hanging out right now. But it was just such this whirlwind because it was these slow steps to where I always equate it to like being a frog in a pot of boiling water, not really aware that the heat is turning up. Because if I had known this in the beginning, it would have been so easy to be like, no, like this is crazy. I deserve more. But it was one thing at a time. And somehow I kept bringing it back to me. And I think it's because it started with the first thing I found out was the cheating. And so for me at that age, especially, it was, oh, well, what does she have that I don't? And so I was always really focused on that, not realizing one by one these other things. And I was so worried about taking care of him. Like it was this, like I remember one time he called me because I was finally putting my foot down over something, and he called me and he was apparently speeding down the highway threatening to kill himself. And so then all of a sudden I'm wrapped up in his world and I'm like, I can't do this to him anymore because look how this makes him spiral. And I should add that his dad died the weekend that I met him, and my dad had died a few years before. And so I was in this mindset where I'm going to love you like nobody loved me when I was going through my stuff. I spiraled when I was going through my stuff and nobody understood. They kept telling me to get over it. So I'm going to be here and be your support system. And I did that until I basically found myself in a jail cell for something that he did that I didn't even know that he did. And he was secretly robbing houses that night. Mind you, he even took my car while I was sleeping once because he was stealing things from a house, and my car had this soft top. It was a Jeep and it had this big soft top that went back. And I guess he locked my keys in the car when he was robbing this house and came out, and instead of stopping robbing the house and like calling AAA, he was like, well, I don't want to get caught. So he ruined my car and ripped open the soft top. All sorts of things happened. Meanwhile, I'm just worried about taking care of this guy. So I guess we should backtrack and explain to people what is codependency, because if you haven't been in this relationship, it doesn't really make sense to you, I don't think. How do you define it?
My definition has now become even simpler. It's people who, for one reason or another, find themselves loving another human more than they love themselves, to the other person's detriment and to our detriment.
So what are some of the characteristics of codependency?
Well, you explained that both your ex-husband and you were in deep grief when you met. Right?
Ex-boyfriend, yes.
Or ex-boyfriend, yeah. I think being in trauma and grief really can set the stage internally for us to get into a codependent relationship where we're consistently loving the other person more than we love ourselves. And we just slide into it. It seems like a natural response to a loss in our life to want someone to be there for us, to love us. And I mean, it's normal to want to be in relationship. But when we lose the ability to discern if what we're doing is hurting us or not, if it's helpful or hurting us, that's when we get in trouble. And maybe we all need one whippersnapper of a codependent relationship to really drive it home what it means and how easy, because more than being a dysfunctional thing, it's a human thing. If we're good humans, We don't want someone to threaten to kill themselves and go, oh, it's your choice. You know, I mean, we want to be loving, kind humans on this planet. We want to be loving to the people we love. But when there's a dysfunction and when there's codependency, it doesn't help. Our love doesn't help at all. And it backfires and we're resentful and the other person hates us, you know, unless we're in the love part of the love-hate thing. And I don't know that there's one cure for it. I believe we need to keep awareness and mindfulness of our level of self-love all our lives. It's so easy. It's so easy to forget to love ourselves. So easy to forget to love ourselves.
Jim Rohn always says, what's easy to do is easy not to do. And it's one of the things I remind myself because I'm like, I just keep putting this off. It's so easy. In the same way, it's also pretty simple to remember to love yourself. We're just not in those patterns. And so it doesn't feel easy because we tend to take on other patterns. I don't remember anyone teaching me about boundaries. You learn it feels good to help others and, put others first. And so
and never say no,
yeah,
That's what I was taught in AA. Never say no to anyone, anywhere. And, that's a trick.
It's probably the worst advice ever.
I know. That's what most of us were running on back in the early 70s. AA had just opened its doors to young people, and we were so grateful and happy. We didn't have a clue what was going on, but we were happy we had this place to go. But in relationships, we didn't know anything, nothing yet. We were just bumping and banging around and getting injuries and trying to figure out how we could not get hurt so much.
So a few decades later, you've updated your book with a revised version. Mm-hmm. What was the inspiration for that? And what new insights have you had since you first published the book?
The inspiration for that was fairly multi-layered and ultimately getting back to copyright law. I mean, the copyright did revert to me this year. So that's the why now. Well, you're not even old enough to look at a yearbook and cringe, are you?
Oh, yeah, I am. I'm almost 40.
You look about 26. Well, whenever I'd open Codependent No More and just glance through it, I'd find something that would make me cringe. Like, oh, if your goal is to get a waterbed, well, nobody's goal is to get a waterbed anymore. I mean, it just showed the time that book was written all over. There were no cell phones yet. And even some of the codependent problems we run into didn't exist back then. We didn't have social media when I wrote that book. Some computers had the ability to become word processors. So that was about as close to computers as we were getting. The inspiration for the new book, it came from the passage of sheer years. All right, I'm gonna flip back again to when I was actually sitting in my little office writing that book. When I got to chapter 20, I had my outline and I sat down to write it and I went, no, something's missing. Something's not in here. And I got all up in my head and I thought, but I don't know what it is. And then this voice said, well, how can you write it if you don't know what it is? So I thought, all right, my original outline is good. I'm going to stick with that. In 1990, on my son's 12th birthday, he was killed in a ski accident. He never came home. And so I had been traumatized throughout my life. Most women my age have been. But it shattered my family and it completely traumatized my soul. And over the ensuing years, I began to learn that, my God, I've been traumatized my whole life. I mean, if you come from an alcoholic home, an alcoholic family, and if you go through certain experiences that people from my generation commonly went through, you have a degree of trauma. I just thought that's the way people felt, that you always had this like drum beating inside of you. You always felt like running away, like you had to get away or you'd explode. And I just thought, well, all people feel that way. Well, no, they don't. I had lived with trauma and anxiety my entire life. And then I'm not an expert on these things, but it's my belief that 9/11 put us all into cultural trauma. Were you here for that? You were here for that, weren't
Yep.
you?
Junior year, waking up before anyone else, getting ready for school, and hearing it on the radio.
I mean, and I began to review the concept of trauma and anxiety. And I thought, my God, that goes hand in hand with most of the situations that set up codependency. They're so similar. And then I went, you know what? And the solution to trauma and anxiety is almost exactly the same as it is for codependency. Love ourselves. Slow down, breathe, focus on loving ourselves. So I wanted to bring this book up to 2022. I wanted to have stories in there that were more reminiscent of the way our world is now, not back in 1970, but the way it is now. And I wanted to write about anxiety and trauma because healing it in my life, working on healing it, revolutionizes my life every day.
Yeah, I know in your book you said that your son's death helped you gain an understanding of the ways that trauma and anxiety and PTSD intersect with codependency. What is that relationship? Are those that have those experience, you said that they're more likely to be in a codependent relationship, but why exactly?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know, but I do find that trauma, PTSD go hand in hand with codependency. It's like we find someone, we get in a relationship, and we know that it'll settle down once Stockholm syndrome takes over. I mean, we are used to being held hostage by life, and in many ways, being held hostage by ourselves. Not so much by life, but by ourselves. But they are I don't think I've met one codependent person that doesn't have a lot of anxiety and trauma. I don't think I've met any humans walking around right now that don't have an enormous amount of anxiety and trauma. We don't do anything well when we're that stressed, including living our own lives. The further we get away from ourselves, the further we get away from ourselves. Whether we're running fast to stay ahead of our feelings or just staying busy or becoming a workaholic, there is something very blessed about making our home in ourselves, in our own home.
Yeah, I had experienced a good amount of trauma by the time I met this man that I was sharing about before, which you can even tell when I start to tell the story. I can almost feel myself in the whirlwind. But the few years before, I had been sexually assaulted, and one of my best friends committed suicide, and then my dad died, all within a couple year period of time. And I think the way that it set me up for this was that it shattered my sense of self. I didn't really have a sense of self. And I know a lot of teenagers don't. I'm hoping that when raising my kids, I'm going to do whatever I can, really hope I'm guided to find the insights to teach them what that sense of self looks and feels like. And I do think this generation, like you said, has more words for that. We have more things to describe. So fingers crossed. But
yeah,
but I remember living my whole life to where I was interpreting myself based on the reactions of other people, based on feedback from other people, knowing what I needed to improve or change based on how I felt compared to other people, versus what I learned later. The real start of my growth was, I remember finally doing exercises, and I had to actually get fed exercises from books. Like, what do you want to be? Who do you think you are? What are your goals? What do you like? What lights you up? Not what does everybody like this year? What's cool to like this year? It was just this whole different way. And although it sounds so simple, I don't think I'd ever thought of it.
I know finding ourselves isn't simple because not that many people point us to it, because not that many people know how to find their own souls, their own self, their own higher self. The thing that lives in us that makes us unique, spiritual, able to reflect light to others, able to have experiences and learn and grow from them. That's us, that's us. But we're not born with an inherent connection. And often the experiences we have by the time we're 18 can drive us away from ourselves. By then I don't know how kids are doing it today with all the social media. There's so much pressure on kids today to be who everyone else wants them to be. And very little talk about who people really are and the beauty of that and how to support that in that growth.
Social media is crazy because I can spend an hour on social media and I come out often feeling like crap. I've just seen the most beautiful houses, the best workout plan, the best bodies, and you leave and you're like, oh, well, all of a sudden you have your Amazon cart full of things that you need for your house. You're planning lower calorie meals. And I didn't have that. That social media wasn't a thing when I was in high school. Facebook came out when I was in college. I was just going to say you needed a college email to join, but I also just recently saw a meme that millennials love to talk about how when they started Facebook, you needed a college email. But there were very limited functions too. You had one profile photo and you could basically just poke people. So it was a way to get together in real life. It's like, oh, some guy named Andrew from Sigma Chi just poked me. Maybe he wants to get together, and then you plan a party and then you meet in person. So the kind of sinkholes of social media weren't there for me, but I know how much they can affect me now as a person who's been working on herself for over a decade, that knows these things, that knows what to look out for. So man, just considering the fact that an 11-year-old has access to the same things, it's really dangerous when you think about it.
It is. I mean, how long can any human scroll down Twitter and not react?
12 seconds.
And and reacting is never a good idea. I mean, we try to live our lives by figuring out authentic, legitimate responses to every situation, but we get online and we lose our minds. We absolutely lose our minds, and we'll say anything, we'll do anything. And people will get in the media and they'll just tell lies in order to get more attention than the next person. I mean, it's really not. I don't even know that I agree with the World Wide Web. I really don't. I mean, we just have so much exposure to so much. And I think a lot of us are overwhelmed most of the time. And we're just living our life scrambling around, trying to get a home as nice as the one our friends got, trying to have the same good vacations they do, trying to go the same places they do. I mean, it's brought out the worst in humanity. We used to stay home and imagine, what are the Joneses doing? What kind of a house do they have? Now it's just posted online for us to look at. We can see everything we have to keep up to if that's what matters to us. So it can be very challenging.
And they can post this amazing photo of the inside of their homes. And if you zoomed out, it's the only clean corner and everything else looks like crap, but you have no idea. They should have a local mode for the web. So you just click it and then you can only see things within a mile of your house. Maybe that'll kind of zoom us back into reality so we're not comparing ourselves to every single person in the world.
Oh, I know. It's too much. It's just too much all the time. I think COVID helped. It helped me anyway. It helped me slow down, cool my jets, and focus on what's important, what can I change, and what am I doing to make my own world a better place? What can I do today that will make it better? Can I fix my house? Can I make a repair? Can I fix myself? Can I work on changing something? Is there a new hobby? Is there something I'm interested in doing that I'd like to learn more about? But this focus on what we can and can't change, I think, is crucial now and always.
One of the first lessons in your book is around detachment. And you say that we need detachment frequently in order to live healthy lives. And for some people, that's counterintuitive because we learn that attachment and connection is the key to
making good TikToks.
Yes, exactly. To a healthy life. Or to a happy life. And so when you say detachment, what does that look like? When you say detachment, what does that look like?
Well, we can have people, places, and things we like, or it can go further down that curve into we can get attached to people, places, and things. I only eat this kind of food. I'm attached to my new boyfriend. I'm going to be with him all my life. It has to last forever. We get very attached ideas going on. And whenever we do that, we're working ourselves up to some kind of a tower moment. When I not had to, had to detach from my alcoholic husband drinking his last trip to Vegas during the marriage, I thought that would be the only time I would have to do like a big detach. Like, all right, you're going to do what you're going to do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And, this attachment that's kept me hovering over everything you do, thinking I was responsible for it, thinking I had to fix it. It's over. It's just flipping over. I thought I'd only have to do it that one time. But I learned that there are varying levels of detachment and letting go, that it's beneficial if we use them throughout our day, throughout our lives, for all the things we can't control and all the things we can't change. Not so much that, oh, I don't care about anything, but what can I legitimately bring a positive spin to? Where can I be of service? Where can I be helpful? Where can I do my art? Where can I be me, honestly?
What's that line for you of where can I be helpful versus finding yourself caretaking? Because I know that that's a blurry line for a lot of people.
I know. And I think codependency has given being of service, a bad name. Everything we do has an impact on the world around us. I can't give people a book that will tell them, okay, if you do this, it's caretaking. If you do this, it's loving and caring. That's that mark we find in ourselves. When is it my job? When is it my business? How much is my business? And that's especially true with kids, but it can be true with an alcoholic too, although the boundaries with people with addictive disorders are usually a little clearer once we're ready to look at them. Our boundaries with kids can be a little more complicated because we are responsible for our children. How much and what that means should be open to growth and change as the child grows and changes, and learns about they're responsible for their own consequences. But we're way too eager to help as when we're into our codependency, because whatever we do for another means we don't have to think about working on ourselves. When I talk about being of service, I'm not talking about in a codependent way. I'm talking about measuring the value of what we're doing. Is there value in what I'm doing? Is the work I'm doing bringing to the world something of value, or is it adding to the shit pot? Do I have anything to offer? That's what I mean about figuring out what we can do that's helpful. And I think that's an important consideration right now in our world, is measuring what we're doing, what we're hoping to get paid for at some level, and where we want to put our energy. Does it have value? Is it of service, or are we just making noise? It's important to me to ask myself that question.
Yeah, in codependency, it's so difficult because you feel like you're giving of yourself and that's a good thing to do, but you don't realize that losing yourself is not a good thing to do. And it's like the epitome of putting on your own oxygen mask first. If you lose yourself completely in this relationship, then you'll have nothing to give very soon. That life force that you think that you're sharing, you're actually just sort of handing over, and they're trampling
like
it along with theirs.
Yeah, the wick will burn down and down and down until there's nothing left. And you say, you made me this way. This is your fault.
Yeah. But it's a mind warp, because for me, I remember the reward cycle. It was like I would think I was helping, and usually it would go to crap, and then he'd kind of come back and apologize, and then I'd feel good. And it was like everything that I felt was wrapped up into this one person that I forgot about my friends, about my family. Like my whole life just exploded. And then I finally realized that's just rock bottom with absolutely nothing to lose anymore. And that was when I could finally get away. But the rebuilding process was so extreme because I had nothing. He destroyed any money that I had in savings. My car was ruined. Like I had to move to another city to get away from him. He still tormented me for a couple years.
A good dysfunctional relationship will leave us with nothing, even those things we've worked so hard to establish.
Yeah.
It will just shred us. literally, on a physical and spiritual. It will leave us bankrupt.
Yeah. But I guess the blessing is that I realized that everything that I had built was on an insecure foundation to begin with, I suppose. Otherwise, it wouldn't have fallen so freely, you know? And so the building that I did after that relationship versus before was so wildly different because I was building from this place of it was coming from myself rather than from this
What you
other
thought
person.
you should be doing,
Yeah.
or what
Yeah,
someone else wanted you to do.
exactly.
It is. And that's the best way for us to learn and grow. I mean, there's good information I can put out in books so we understand the concepts, but the application of that to our own lives is up to each of us. It's how we feel as we go about living our lives. Do I resent this? Do I enjoy this? Did I mean what I just said? Do I mean what I'm saying now? It's that constant pulling us back to be present in the here and now, in our own lives, not obsessing about anyone else, not worried about what they're doing or not doing, not worried about what they might do next. Some people call it being happy. I think being peaceful is a better description. When we can be at peace with who we are and our lives, that's just the best. It's absolutely the best. Where there's nothing in our lives we're resisting. That's such a great feeling.
That's one of the Buddhist philosophies where everyone thinks they're chasing happiness, but happiness is sort of this fleeting
If you're chasing
experience.
it, then that's all you're doing is chasing it. You don't call
Yeah.
it.
And then it also gives a contrast to the moments that aren't quite as exuberant, where even excitement is not necessarily peace. Yes, it's a good feeling to go into, but it's not peace. Peace is that being okay with things as they are, regardless of if everything's perfect or if something exciting's coming up. It's just being able to be without trying to change it.
Yeah. Being that excited or that happy can actually be as off-putting as feeling really sad or down. I mean, whatever takes us out of center can disrupt our connection to our higher self very easily.
So you say that most codependents are reactionaries. How so?
Well, most humans, but the ones that become codependents is what I was talking about a bit ago. If someone does or says something that we really don't like, if we scroll down Twitter, that impulsive burst of anger and resentment or outrage, that's a reaction. I've never seen a helpful reaction, not once in my whole life. I've never seen one that's been helpful. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and that reaction just can start off a new chain. What we're trying to do is live in peace. At least that's what I'm trying to do as much as possible. So then it falls on me to, do I need to say that right now? Do I really need to throw that into the mix? Does anyone care what I have to say right now about that? Does anyone care about how angry I am? I mean, I care, but so much of the stuff we want to spout in the end is nonsense, isn't it? It's just words. It's just words and energy, and very little of it is peaceful or loving or uplifting. We've gotten into some kind of a knot in the world with communication, with being angry, with I don't even know that people want to talk. Sometimes I think they just want to fight or argue or win.
I wonder if part of that is the social media where so much of our communication is typing, pressing enter, and then we're back. We have no actual empathetic feedback for what we just did. And so instead we just keep drilling in these habits of saying whatever we want and seeing no consequences until next time we log in. And then instead, it's not a person, it's just a comment. And so we're back in the reaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't seen reactions accomplish much good in the world. It seems like the computer people found a way to keep us very, very, very busy doing stuff that just doesn't matter.
Yes, I used to work in product design for apps. And yeah, that is by design. Literally everything. I love giving this example because people don't know how deep it goes. But even when you log into Facebook, say you open the app on Facebook, it takes a split second for your notification number to pop up on the bottom. That's on purpose. Mm-hmm. They have the ability to have that number be there immediately, but it adds an extra surge of dopamine when you're waiting this microsecond, and it creates the addiction cycle even more deeply.
I don't go on Facebook. I don't go on Twitter. My media team does. But I just noticed that the minute I get on Twitter, I'm ready to start spouting along with everyone else. And I don't want to spend my hours and my days doing that. I just don't. So I've decided what I'm going to do to keep up with the times is I'm going to learn to tell sweet stories in short video form, not your regular TikToks, but just little heart-opening stories that I find. And I'm going to take my time and learn how to make little videos and edit them. But I'm not going to. There's enough nonsense being spouted out there. I don't need to put any more of that in there. It doesn't help. It's a big pot that's all going to be washed away someday of darkness and insults and objections and everything else our responses are made out of.
I know. I mean, I'm not proud to admit, if you compiled every single thing I've ever written online, who knows what kind of person I would look like that moment in 2011 when I was triggered and had 2 glasses of wine or whatever it was, like it's just like all of these things. You were leaving this imprint, but I love the way you described reactions in your book. You said that when we react, we forfeit our personal power to think, feel, and behave in our best interests. And that makes so much sense because a reaction is always about the other person. The other person did something, and then all of a sudden, all we're doing is giving energy towards that thing that we like or dislike or whatever it is, and it's never about us.
No, and it's not helpful. And a reaction has never helped me unless I've screamed at someone, watch out, because they're about to walk into something. I mean, it doesn't help to react like that. And it's not where I want to put my life force, is in a lot of reactions. What I do think that's good about the social media is we all have a camera we're carrying with us now. So that provides a degree of safety and comfort for women in our world, doesn't it? We could, if something goes bad, we can just say, well, I'll take a picture. And then we go on with our life. I hope our world starts to get better very, very, very soon. I really do. I love this world, but we've gotten pretty far out of alignment here. And we can only bring ourselves into alignment. I can only bring me into alignment. I have to say, I feel so good about that chapter I wrote in that book about anxiety and PTSD. I feel it's some of the best writing work I've done in my life in there. I mean, it transformed me putting it together, and I hope other people find it to be a helpful gift the way I intended to when I wrote it. We can't calm down and make good decisions until we get out of our trauma and our anxiety and can walk around, I would say 75% of the time, feeling like we're at peace with ourselves, our situation, and our lives. So that's my goal. 25% we could be having an off day.
The hardest part for codependence is that, and what I didn't see in myself at the time, because for me, I didn't have the self-awareness to even see the cycle or the patterns that were going on. I just knew, oh, this is happening. And so I felt like I must respond or I must do this. All of a sudden, he's spiraling. I must come to his aid. There wasn't another option in my mind. Like if I ignored him, then something bad would happen and it felt like it was going to be my fault.
Yeah, you didn't have the language yet.
I didn't see that it was control. Like I had no idea. When I first picked up your book, I remember actually reading it. I'm like, what do you mean I'm controlling? Like I haven't tried to control anybody. Like I'm just trying to survive this relationship at this point. And then I saw everything that I was doing was trying to fix him, which is a form of control. Everything that I was doing was trying to make sure that his next step didn't happen, was really what the basis of it was, whether it was to go blow all the money at the casino or whether it was to cheat on me or whether it was to rob a house. Like literally everything was like, just stay in the safe little bubble. I'll make you happy and healthy and it will be fine. And so where does that sense of control come from for a codependent? Because like I said, I didn't even realize that I was trying to control. And so where does that sense of control come from for a codependent? Because like I said, I didn't even realize that I was trying to control.
It's a very normal response. If you see someone about to fall on their face, it's normal, unless you hate them, to want to warn them, to help them, to not have them hurt themselves as much. And when you're living with an alcoholic or an addict or anyone with any number of problems where they are self-initiated and appear to be at the person's volition, it we just want to help. It's our natural impulse to keep things from getting worse. We don't want things to get worse. We don't want that crisis to happen again. We don't want things to go crazy again. That's a very normal response until we maybe sort it out a little and realize that they are controlling us the same way we're controlling them. And I tell a story about that in Codependent No More, about a woman that looked at her husband one day and said, you accuse me of being controlling, but every time you call me and sweet talk me, every time you sit down and say, we're going to start over, you're controlling me. Everything you do is meant to control me and what I do and don't do. So what you've really got is two completely out of control people trying to control each other, instead of each human quietly backing off, letting go, and going, what do I need to do to love and take care of myself right now? Sometimes it can be helpful just to sort out our responsibilities. What are my responsibilities to my partner, to my husband? Is it to call his boss and lie? No. What are my true responsibilities in any relationship? I can't answer that for anyone. We each need to answer that for ourselves. How far am I willing to go? How far is it healthy for me to go? When is it time to say no? And we've got our higher self. Our higher self will always be there if we take time to listen to it. It will tell us when we're going too far. It will tell us when things don't feel right, but not if we're outside of our bodies, just focused on the other.
That's the key for me, was learning how to be in my body, which I lost when I was sexually assaulted, and then further locked myself out when I developed an eating disorder for over a decade. Every part of my life was about not feeling, and when I was drinking too much, and even I finally gave up alcohol completely about 430 days ago. And it was so interesting because I had made so much progress in life, and I definitely changed my relationship with alcohol over the years. Like, I did not binge drink anymore. I didn't go out and get drunk. I didn't party. It was more about having the glass of wine here and there. But when I asked myself, like, what was I seeking in life? And then what was I seeking from this? In life, my whole goal, the whole reason I do mind love and learn all the time is I want to develop as much self-awareness as possible. And it was just this other way that I numbed myself to my true feelings, to what was going on in that moment. It was another way to escape, even if it wasn't on the level of before. I wasn't trying to compare myself anymore to my past self. I just want to show up in life and experience all that I can and be the best version of me. And it was no longer serving me in that way. And so, but I don't think I would have seen that, because from the outside point of view, my relationship with alcohol wasn't other people's definition of negative anymore. It was really normal, maybe less than other people's. But I think that's really what happens when you choose to tune in, because then you stop living by everyone else's standards and you can see, like, no, is this serving me? What are my goals? How do I want to be? I'm not trying to be like everyone else, clearly. So what do I need to do? And then you can actually follow your internal guidance instead of just like, well, is this normal compared to everyone around me, compared to my past? And that's when the insights actually come. So for me, that was probably one of the things I'm most proud of, because it is so accepted. Bulimia is clearly not. So that, yes, it was an obvious one that I need to stop. But like, yeah, having a glass of wine at dinner, everyone else is like, oh, it's okay, but alcohol is great. But no, this was my guidance. It wasn't guidance from other people. And I wouldn't have had that if I wouldn't have made that choice and done the work to get there.
It's that inner guide that I'm talking about. We can't look for rules, anyone's rules, in mind or on their lives. We need to know what our essential limits are, know who we are, but stay fluid and stay in touch with ourselves. And yet that can be such a fearful process for so many of us. I find it liberating and somewhat confusing because I'll still argue with myself pretty good sometimes. All the answers we seek are either in ourselves or will be forthcoming shortly. We have more information in our world right now than we've ever had, at least in my lifetime. I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can you can find any kind of information. You can go on TV and find any kind of show. You can go on Amazon and find any kind of book. We have so much information. And my personal philosophy is that we've each got our own path to well-being. And usually the first stones we walk along on that path are the ones dysfunctional relationship, like you said, anorexia, we walk along the stones that will lead us to our own path of well-being. And then the creation and the embracing of that path becomes the life work that we each take on. And it may and will likely change again over time. Life can easily become, I would say, like every decade or 12 years, something new, big we need to surrender to. I mean, we never get to a point where we can stop growing, where we can stop being mindful, where we can stop paying attention because we get codependent again.
Codependency happens when you're in a relationship, or really you changed your definition. So when we love someone more than we love ourselves, can there be two codependents in a relationship? And what does that usually look like?
It's a very boring show. We're now of the mindset that most people who are chemically dependent are also codependent. So yes, there are many codependent couples. It can look like whatever it looks like, We can never really know what's going on inside anyone else's relationships. All we see is what they show to us, the face they put onto the world, the pictures they post. That's all we see. We don't know how it feels like to be in that relationship. We don't know what the one secret is that they don't want to tell anyone. We don't know what the one big pain in that relationship is that they're hiding mostly from themselves. We don't know unless they tell us. So two codependents together can usually get pretty ugly. They'll do a lot of fighting and then they'll do a lot of people pleasing, and both of them want out, but they're both afraid to say so. It can get very ugly.
Yeah, you say at the heart of most people who are codependent or rescuers is low self-worth. And for me, low self-worth, yes, I can look at trauma and see how it was shattered. But at the same time, I don't think I ever learned how to build it. And so, of course, it was easy to shatter. It was an illusion, I think. Like, I didn't start discovering myself or loving myself from the inside out until my late 20s. And I don't think I really fully embodied it and understood what it meant until my 30s, I guess. And it didn't come naturally. It was something that I've read hundreds of books at this point, interviewed 400 people by now. And I still am finding new layers.
Getting to know ourselves isn't easy because, first of all, nobody tells us we're ever going to have to do that. And we're kind of like monkeys on this planet, aren't we? Other people are mirrors for us. We see ourselves in the mirror of their lives and then we bounce off. But that's a rather simplistic and unfulfilling way to live for most of us. So that whole process of who am I? How do I feel? What do I really want? What am I interested in? What do I hate? Answering those questions as often as we need to know who we are and to know the raw material of our own soul that we're dealing with is something we can't ignore ourselves because our self won't go away. We're stuck with us for life.
There was another line in your book that just really hit home for me, and it zoomed me right back to this one moment in my past. And you said that the most painful loss for any codependent is the loss of our dreams. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I had really acknowledged that at the time. Yeah, I know I lost a lot, but I forgot that the 2 years before that relationship, I was actually starting to build. I started to put away money. I bought a brand new Jeep. I was doing pretty well. And then I decided to move back to California from Texas. And I was ready to be back in Southern California, find a place, with a foundation that I had never had before. I mean, most college students, I mean, if you're anything like me, I was like living off my meal plan, and I'm like, I have $12 to last me through weeks, and now all of a sudden I had money, and everything that I had started to build was drained. But above that is then for the next like 6 years, I had such a hard time building anything because everything just felt like it could go in any moment. And so I don't know this is more of me sort of analyzing why, but I could not save money. It was like it was in and out. Even if I made a lot of money, it was immediately out. I was afraid to even keep relationships for long. It's like the moment there was tension, I was on to the next friendship circle. And I didn't really realize that until I read that sentence, how much that affected me. I was afraid to really attach to anything because I was afraid maybe somehow it would control me. So I just was the ultimate free spirit. So I think that's an important thing to realize because, I don't know, it's like every day you learn something new comes into my awareness, and I'm like, oh, there's another layer that I'm seeing from that past experience.
Just from what you've told me, I find you a remarkable young woman to have gone through these experiences, to have sought out the solutions. And I think you've earned your right to be a podcast person. What do they call podcast people?
Podcaster.
Okay.
Very simple.
Well, you have definitely earned your right to be a podcaster.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. Well, I love leaving listeners with something to focus on for the week. And so say somebody's listening to this, it's resonating. They're like, I have some work to do. Where's the first place that you would tell them to start and just maybe getting out of the perspective they've been in or beginning to heal?
I always suggest that people start with whatever hurts. What hurts? And then try to find out, am I feeding that hurt or am I feeding the balm to that hurt? Which one am I feeding? And the second tip I would give anyone listening right now, whether they're codependent or not, is to go more slowly. Go a little more slowly. You don't have to push that hard. You don't have to push that fast. Okay? You can do better if you go slower. We don't have to multitask every moment we're alive.
I think I needed that second tip. Actually, I'm like giving birth in February. I've got all these plans, and sometimes I do remind myself, it's like, slow and steady wins the race, but I'll have these bursts of energy, do a bunch, and then my pregnancy symptoms will knock me on my butt, and it's just that reminder, slow down. Life is short, but it's also long.
I was just thinking the other day, remembering back to my pregnancies with both my kids. Such a remarkable, wonderful, mysterious, miraculous time. It's just such a brilliant time in our lives.
I feel blessed. And my first kid is the cutest little thing, his personality, everything. So I'm just excited to discover who this second one was.
What's the first one?
Bravery.
Oh, do you know what sex this child is, or are you going to wait to find out?
Boy. I'll have two boys.
You're going to have two boys?
Yeah.
My daughter had two boys.
I'm going to have my hands full, that's for sure.
You are. You're definitely going to have your hands full. It is, I don't know, when I look back on my entire life, I'm 74 now, my time raising my kids with both of them in the home was the happiest I have ever been. I mean, I was, in retrospect, sublimely happy.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I'll keep
just
that
perspective. Just making money, caring for them. There was no man in the picture, just loving the kids, loving me, and being our little family.
Thank you so much for the wisdom that you brought to this episode and also to the world. And like I said, for helping me almost 16 years ago when I was going through everything I was going through. So like I said, this interview is almost surreal. I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to interview her. So this is really special for me. So for listeners that are interested in connecting and finding the new revised version of your book, where's the best place for them to look?
I'd send them to Amazon. It's easy. It's simple.
Anywhere else, social links or anything that you want people to follow?
No, I haven't started how to make a video out of a story yet. So I do have a lot of word games up on my site, melaniebeattie.com, word search games that embrace the concepts of a meditation, but you have to find all the words first. Those are free. They go on there and play games. And
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/274. Your challenge for this week is to bring some awareness around your codependent tendencies, if this is speaking to you. I'm not trying to just say you're codependent if you're not, but if you made it this far, chances are the episode is resonating, whether for you or maybe for someone you know. And the first step is admitting that you might be in a codependent relationship, and that is kind of the hardest part. Like I said, when I first came across the word codependent, I was really bothered by that part of the word dependent. I did not feel like I was dependent on this person. But what I didn't realize was how much my life became enmeshed with his. Meaning if he did something, it directly affected me, and I couldn't let go. I couldn't just walk away and see that this was horrible for me and it was ruining my life and that this person was just dragging me down. And sometimes it gets even more complicated when the person isn't just a boyfriend, it's a child or a husband. So admitting to yourself that this might be an issue is the first step, because then you can create a plan of action. And that plan of action starts with setting boundaries. You have to start putting yourself first and saying no to the things that you don't want to do. It's not easy, but it is necessary. And the first step in those boundaries is figuring out who you are without the mess of this person. And I know it sounds harsh, but it's necessary for anyone to live their fullest life. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you like, what you don't like, what your goals are in life. And then you have to set boundaries so that you're actually able to stay on your own path. I have a lot of tips for boundaries, but here are a couple that I live by because I didn't learn boundaries till my 30s and I will never let them go. Be clear about what you want. Be assertive in your communication. Don't be afraid to say no. In fact, practice it in the mirror multiple ways. There are even websites online like Google, how to say no. There are a lot of resources. I've used them. Don't be afraid to be honest about your feelings, regardless of how your feelings are received by this other person. I can guarantee you this person has not always given you the same grace, so it is not a cruel thing to do. And then again, don't be afraid to put yourself first. You hear it on an airplane every time they talk about those damn oxygen masks. So just take the advice. So let me know how it goes. If you need any help, reach out to me on Instagram at MindLoveMelissa. If you'd like to support the show, the best way to do that is by joining MindLove Premium at mindlove.com/premium. You get a whole backlog of over 50 exclusive episodes just for premium members, and some of them are some of the best episodes that have ever been on MindLove. You also get an ad-free listening experience, you get episodes early, and you get bonus meditations. You can also find all of my sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. And if you want to be my very best friend, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Either one helps. If you want to be the godmother of my children, you can copy and paste from one to the other so that you do both platforms at the same time. And that's all. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.
Your business is one of a kind, so your website should be too. With Wix, it's easy, almost too easy, to create a website that's perfectly yours. Just tell AI what kind of site you want to build or choose from thousands of templates. Change whatever you want, whenever you want, and get everything you need to start running your business your way. No matter what you sell or what you aspire to be, you can do it all yourself on Wix.